Papers from around the world and how they've been reacting to what's been going on in Egypt. And our press reviewer, James Creedon, joins me for that now here in the studio. Good morning, James.
Good morning, Laura.
OK, so we're going to start off in the UK with The Guardian.
Yes, indeed. Let's have a look at the front page. Egypt's hope turns to fury as Mubarak clings to power. And indeed, it speaks about those massive protests expected today because of the expectations people had yesterday based on rumours coming out from agencies that he was going to resign. And then the reality of the situation where he clung on to power. Let's have a look at the editorial. Last night, he laid a powder trail that could explode today in disastrous confrontations between the army and the people, thus far avoided. So that powder trail that was laid last night, quite a striking image. And they also say that essentially the military needs now to help isolate Mubarak and help install a national unity government made up of representatives of every group and class, including military officers, but not dominated by them. So that's their solution at the end of the editorial. Let's have a look at an opinion piece by Slavoj Zizek. He's a political commentator. What we are witnessing is the miracle of Tahrir Square. Now, he has a couple of images which I think are great. We all know the classic scene from cartoons, he says. The cat reaches a precipice, but goes on walking, ignoring the fact that there is no ground under his feet. It starts to fall only when it looks down and notices the abyss. So basically, he's saying that's where the Egyptian regime and that's where Mubarak is right now, over the edge of the cliff, without even realising that there's no ground under his feet.
So when will they look down? That's
exactly. That's the question, I guess. Various fears in the West, for instance, that a new government would be hostile to Israel, unfounded because anti-Semitism can only grow in an environment of oppression. Also, the cruelest of ironies, he points to, the transition should take place in a lawful way. These are all sort of opinions that expressed in the West. Well, what rule of law? There's been a situation, a state of emergency for almost 30 years, he points out. So, yes, some of those unfounded fears or I suppose, demands are being pointed out there.
OK, and staying in the UK, we're going to move on now to The Independent and quite a well-known writer on the Middle East.
Yes, indeed, Robert Fisk. What now for Egypt is the front page question. He describes the horror of Egyptians yesterday as they were expecting to hear him, Mubarak resign, and we saw what happened. The most striking thing, I suppose, being how out of phase Mubarak's speech was with the people, that absolute disconnect that was so visible if you saw the crowds in Tahrir Square and the speech being delivered. Last night, dictatorship won and democracy lost, he said. Now, so lots of other analysis apart from that in The Independent, but we'll move on to L'Orient Le Jour in Lebanon. Mubarak refuses to listen to Tahrir, and perhaps the answer is in foreign policy, that American journal, we need to drag him from his palace. That was they were the words uttered by one school teacher in Tahrir Square, so that absolute frustration. The New York Times, Obama tested on whether to break with Mubarak. They're talking about the confusion of the American reaction. We saw the head of the CIA, Leon Panetta, saying earlier in the day in the House of Representatives that it was almost it was quite likely that Mubarak would resign. He was basing that on media reports, not on intelligence. This is extraordinary. The head of the CIA going on what the media was saying, not on intelligence reports.
It shows right now, James.
He might be basing what he's going to say today on this. Who knows? I mean, it shows the absolute disarray of American intelligence. A quick look at what the Arabic press is saying. Al-Quds Al-Arabi. This is a London-based pan-Arabic paper. Mubarak delegates power, but the revolution insists that he goes. Al-Hayat, also in London. Mubarak delegates power to Suleiman, but demonstrators demand their departure. Suleiman too, who I suppose, as they were saying also in the New York Times, the American administration was counting on Suleiman
the vice president,
exactly, for an orderly transition. But now Mubarak has dragged Suleiman down with him in the eyes of protesters. Quick look at the Egyptian press. Al-Ahram, which is an official newspaper. Mubarak delegates to Omer Suleiman, and they're very much putting forth the official line. And Al-Waft to finish with. This is also the opposition party, one of the opposition parties in Egypt, and their newspaper, Mubarak placing Egypt's future at risk. And they have a photo of El Baradei on the front page and his warning that the situation is now absolutely explosive. Okay. So we'll see where it goes today. Indeed. Another big day in Egypt.
Absolutely. Well, thank you very much indeed, James, for that review of all today's international newspapers. Let's get a